Hey, this is Julie. I've had somebody ask me about a quick refresher on high pass and low pass filters. And I'm going to throw in my quick tutorial on noise reduction at the end as well. This is for trying to keep this as short as possible so it's as easy to go back to and refer to. Now, this is just some sample recording I did. I mean, some stuff I did in my studio. So, whoops. Wrong thing. Pushing wrong buttons. I want volume. Okay. We're voluming it up so you can kind of hear what I'm doing. Now, if we take something like this.
You naughty boy, you.
And we run a high pass filter. Now, the numbers I always use 300 here. And this is the lowest number that this box will go to. It used to go to 3, doesn't anymore, hasn't done for years. I don't know why Audacity changed that, but there you go. 300 is the number here. I was told that by a sound engineer, who was the first person to point me at using the the high pass filter in the first place. Low pass filter and high pass filter are kind of like stalactites and stalagmites. You got to remember which one comes up from the floor and which one comes down from the ceiling. The low pass, as I've written out there, lets low notes pass, and the high pass lets the high notes pass. So the high pass cuts out low notes, and the low pass cuts out high notes. I'm starting to sound like Dr. Seuss. So, but here, 300 is the number he told me to use for female voices because we tend to be higher and we're not going to be as damaged by taking out lower notes. So, unless you sound like I do right now. Trying to wake up my voice. Anyway, so if you're working with a male voice, you take this number down a little bit, like 200 or 100, and play around with it a little bit. And now, I incorporate this into my initial cleaning routine because a lot of the noise that you want to take out of your noise reduction is going to be in the low buzz of electronics. Whether it's the computer that you're recording on or just the buzz of electricity in your walls that you can't get rid of. So that's one reason for running this as the first part of the cleaning process all the time. So I run that, and you can see things shrink a little bit because something has been taken away. As a side note, this may or may not help anyone, but if I look at a track, I can often see that it has not been high pass filtered because it's not symmetrical to the center line. The high pass filter often makes it more symmetrical. I know that's a weird thing, but I've seen it so many times. It's just a thing that I've noticed. I don't know what the technical anything is about that, just that I've seen it enough times to know it happens. But here...
You naughty boy, you.
And if we undo...
You naughty boy, you.
So you can hear there's a tiny bit of difference, but not much. So it's much more pronounced if you've got a very deep voice in there, and you don't want to do that then. But it's an easy step to make the noise reduction work better because you've taken out a lot of stuff. Just like that, it's like carving off the burnt part at the bottom of a cake, or something like that. So the low pass, now if you take the high pass filter and you run it really high, say we take that and we make it 3000, then you start getting into radio territory.
You naughty boy, you.
And that's how you make something sound like it's on the radio. As you take it and you high pass it really high, you get rid of all the low notes.
You naughty boy, you.
So it's basically you've removed all of the basic underlying low note resonance, and all you've got is the high notes. You sound like you're on AM radio. Okay, now conversely, the low pass filter takes away all of the peaks, the high notes. Now, this is volume. This is not high note versus low note. So it's not like it's going to shave off something appreciable in this wavelength. It might appear in a different visual format, but this is the visual format I work with. I mean, if you were to go over here and go to, spectrograms or something, I don't know. Don't ask me what any of that is. As I said, I am not as technical as I could be. But a low pass filter, my general number to my go-to number is 1,000. Now, when you're doing a high pass filter, if you make the number higher, you're doing more to the resultant thing. With a low pass filter, if you make the number lower, you're doing more. If I just wanted to take the edge off something, I'd actually make this 4,000. If it just felt like there was a little bit of metallic shine to the voice or something, or to a sound effect, I get that a lot. When I do reverb on things, I typically run 1,000 low pass filter on the reverb to take that shiny edge off. Because what the low pass filter is doing is taking off the highest notes, just slicing off them. And so if I did that here, then you'll hear this.
You naughty boy, you.
It's just sort of taking off the burnt top of the cake. No. And if you run a low pass enough, like repeat it,
you naughty boy, you
start to sound like you're behind a door. Because where high notes carry on the radio or outside, low notes carry through walls. And so I use this function a lot to make the sound of somebody behind a door or off in the distance a little bit, inside, not outside. So now, back to basics here. If I run the high pass filter now to go on with the idea of of doing the cleanup, I run the high pass filter. Yeah, as a general rule, the high pass filter, if you run it really high, which is big numbers, I wish I could make that up above. Oh well. Whoops. I mean, see, if you think about it, the high pass, higher numbers make more effect. Low pass, lower numbers make more effect. Okay, so I've run the high pass. I did, didn't I? I don't want to do all that. And then to do the cleanup, I will duplicate the track, cut away all of the visible words, because what I'm looking for is blank space right now. Now, depending on how much blank space you have, you might be cutting more or less, because you want to salvage as much as you can to create a blank space. I duplicate it because what I'm doing is this top track. Now, I mean, I do it on the top track. It's my habit. You can do it however you want. One of the tracks is going to be your guide track. This is the track you screw up so that you can see where all these spots are on the lower track. Wow, what happened there? It looks like some sort of, like the fan on the computer came on or something, because that background noise got all jacked up. I mean, compared to this pretty consistent background noise through here. So I'm gonna cut that part, and I'm gonna cut this part. Now your ultimate goal is, because you're looking for the straight lines. You're trying to cut anything that pops up from the straight line that makes these giant jumps and things. And you're looking for 5 seconds of consistent noise. Now, obviously, this is not the track I'm using for the noise reduction. This is. This is just where I can see where all the spikes are because I've volumed them up so far. This is the leftovers, and it allows me to use it for my noise reduction. Then you go into Effect, Noise Reduction, and you say Get Noise Profile. Now, once you have that noise profile, it's like having something on your clipboard. It's going to stay there until you actually close Audacity or replace it with another noise profile. So if you do a lot of stuff like audiobooks where you're doing everything out of the same studio with the same voice, you can just set your noise profile at the beginning of a session and use it to clean all your tracks, at least in theory. So I'm going to then bring up the noise reduction thing again and say, okay, you don't want to say get noise profile again. You want to say, okay, that just runs it. And then it's done. With the radio shows that I'm doing, I often save a noise profile for each of my character tracks so that if something happens and I realize that it needs to be cleaned and I didn't clean it properly, I can go back and get their noise profile again without having to go through all the foofara to get there. Remember, you have to have at least 5 seconds. Now, if you don't have 5 seconds, if, for instance, after all your cleaning effort, all you come up with is a second, it's not as good, but it works more often than not, depending on how bad your sound is. You can copy that 1 second until it's more than 5 seconds and fool the computer into thinking you had 5 seconds worth of sound. So you can use that for your noise reduction. It's tricky, and it's not always perfect, but it's often better than nothing. Because leaving in a ton of background noise is really bad. Now, you may have noticed that when I pull up my noise reduction, I don't do anything here. I didn't change anything. I know people do. I know that there is some sort of meaning to these numbers. I use the default. So I just use the default. I don't want to mess with any of those at this point, and it seems to work for me. You can mess with them or look up numbers and things and find out things that might make it work better, but I just use the default on a lot of things because it's easier than trying to remember what I did. So, anyway, that is my probably less than informed version of all of this, and I hope that helps.